On January 18, 2026, what began as a peaceful Sunday morning in the rolling hills of southern Spain was suddenly shattered by a disaster that would leave a deep scar on the nation's memory. Near the small town of Ademuz, in the heart of Córdoba, the tranquility of the countryside was broken by the screech of metal and the roar of chaos. A high-speed train, racing along the Madrid-Andalusia line, Spain's first and most celebrated fast train route, suddenly derailed at full speed. This line, a symbol of Spanish innovation and pride, had connected the country's capital to the vibrant south for decades, carrying millions of passengers safely every year. But on this day, something went terribly wrong. The force of the derailment was catastrophic. Carriages twisted and piled atop one another, metal screeched and glass shattered, sending shockwaves through the entire region. The accident triggered a chain reaction, quickly becoming the deadliest train disaster Spain had seen in over a decade, and one of the most severe in its modern history. Within minutes, the scene was transformed into a landscape of devastation. Twisted train cars lay scattered across the tracks, thick smoke billowed into the sky, and the air was filled with the wail of sirens. Rescue workers, firefighters and medics rushed to the site, risking their own safety to pull survivors from the wreckage and tend to the injured. The crash didn't just destroy trains and infrastructure, it shattered the sense of security that the Spanish people had placed in their modern rail system. For many, the AVE trains were more than just a means of travel. They were a symbol of Spain's progress, unity, and technological achievement. Now that symbol was in ruins, and the nation was left in shock and disbelief. The government responded swiftly. Within hours, top officials, including the Prime Minister, arrived at the scene. Emergency meetings were called, and a national day of mourning was declared. The Prime Minister addressed the nation, urging unity and promising a thorough investigation. He called on citizens to support one another and to trust that answers would be found. As the dust settled, teams of investigators and forensic experts began the painstaking task of combing through the wreckage. Every piece of twisted metal, every broken rail, and every data recorder was carefully examined. The search for answers was urgent, not just to understand what had happened, but to prevent such a tragedy from ever occurring again. Each fragment of debris became a vital clue. Investigators worked around the clock, piecing together the sequence of events that led to the disaster. Was it a technical failure, human error, or something more sinister? The nation waited anxiously for answers, knowing that the outcome would shape the future of Spanish rail travel. For the families of those on board, the hours and days that followed were filled with unbearable uncertainty and grief. Crowds gathered at railway stations and hospitals, desperate for news of their loved ones. Across Spain, people mourned together, united in sorrow and in their determination to see justice done. The quiet fields around Ademuz, once a symbol of rural peace, became the epicenter of a national crisis. The disaster forced Spain to confront difficult questions about safety, responsibility, and the true cost of progress. In the aftermath, the country's trust in its modern infrastructure would be put to the ultimate test. After the accident, the true scale of the tragedy slowly unfolded, and the human cost became heartbreakingly clear. In the hours and days that followed, the scene was filled with chaos, confusion, and overwhelming grief as families and first responders tried to come to terms with what had happened. At least 42 lives were lost, each a story cut short, each family left with a void that can never be filled. The victims came from all walks of life, students, parents, workers, and travelers, each with dreams and loved ones waiting for them. Their absence left entire communities in mourning, and the pain rippled far beyond the crash site. Rescue workers faced a very difficult and emotionally taxing job, searching through the twisted wreckage for survivors and victims. For days, they worked tirelessly, often in dangerous conditions, determined to bring closure to families and offer any hope they could find. Their courage and dedication became a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming loss. The tragedy sent shockwaves across Spain. In towns and cities, people gathered to mourn, lighting candles and sharing stories of those lost. News of the accident dominated headlines, and the nation paused to reflect on the lives that had been so suddenly taken away. Flags were lowered to half-mast, and moments of silence were observed in schools, offices, and public squares. The country grieved together, united in sorrow as communities supported one another through the pain and uncertainty. Besides those who died, many who survived were badly hurt, some suffering life-altering injuries. For these survivors, the journey to recovery would be long and difficult, both physically and emotionally. Their lives, and the lives of their families, were changed forever in a matter of moments. Hospitals across the region worked day and night to care for the injured, with doctors, nurses, and volunteers doing everything possible to save lives and ease suffering. The medical response was swift and compassionate, but the emotional wounds would take much longer to heal. Survivors now carry the scars, both on their bodies and in their minds, from that night. Many struggle with memories of the crash, haunted by what they saw and experienced. Their resilience in the face of trauma is a testament to the human spirit, but the road ahead remains uncertain. The Adamas disaster became a powerful reminder of how fragile life is, and of the deep cost when things go wrong. The sight of the derailed train, still and silent in the dawn light, stood as a stark symbol of loss and the need for change. In the aftermath, the country's focus shifted from the technical causes of the crash to the lasting human suffering. The legacy of the disaster lives on, in the memories of those affected, and in the collective determination to prevent such tragedies in the future. The disaster started with a sudden, terrible failure. A fast train heading north went off the tracks on a straight part of the line, where such things should not be possible. The train that went off the tracks moved into the path of another fast train coming the other way. The head-on crash that followed was terrible, completely destroying the front cars of both trains. Broken pieces were scattered all over the tracks, turning sleek trains into twisted metal. Emergency workers faced chaos as they looked for survivors among the debris. The location of the crash, on a straight modern line, confused investigators and the public. Fast train systems are made to prevent exactly this kind of situation. The Adamas crash showed a terrible breakdown in safety, demanding quick answers. The government acted quickly, announcing 3 days of mourning and promising to tell everyone everything. The CIAF, Spain's independent group that investigates train accidents, took charge of the investigation. Officials said it wasn't sabotage or human mistake, focusing instead on technical problems. King Felipe and Queen Letizia visited the site, showing the country's unity and sadness. The president of Renfe confirmed that neither train was going too fast, which made the investigation narrower. The focus shifted to possible problems with the machines or defects in the tracks. The search for answers began, but early findings only made the mystery deeper. The country demanded clear answers as investigators worked to find the truth. With sabotage and human error ruled out, investigators turned their attention to the two remaining suspects, the train itself and the track it ran on. The process was painstaking, with every detail under scrutiny. The team knew that the answer could be hidden in the smallest flaw or the most overlooked maintenance record. The Ireo train, a state-of-the-art model built in 2022, quickly became a main point of interest. Investigators zeroed in on Car 6, the first to leave the rails. Why did this car, out of all the others, derail first? Was there something unique about its construction, its weight distribution, or its recent maintenance history that set it apart? The team examined every mechanical component. Was it a bad axle, a hidden crack in the wheel, or a problem with the suspension system? Could a manufacturing defect, invisible to the naked eye, have been lurking since the train was first assembled? Specialists pored over blueprints and maintenance logs searching for any sign of trouble. At the same time, a broken rail was discovered at the crash site. This raised a critical question. Was the rail break the cause of the derailment, or did it happen as a result of the train leaving the tracks? Investigators collected samples and mapped out the damage, trying to reconstruct the exact sequence of events. The track itself, recently refurbished at significant expense, was now under the microscope. Sections were removed and sent to specialized labs, where experts analyzed the steel's composition and searched for signs of fatigue, corrosion, or improper welding. Every inch of rail was examined for clues. The fact that the crash occurred on a newly updated section of track only deepened the mystery. Had the repairs been rushed, or were corners cut to save time or money? Investigators reviewed construction records, interviewed workers, and checked inspection logs to see if any warning signs had been missed. No detail was too small. Investigators pored over the train's black box data, searching for anomalies in speed, braking, or driver response. Maintenance logbooks were scrutinized for skipped checks or overdue repairs. Every piece of information was a potential clue in the search for the truth. The truth, whether hidden in the metal of the rails, buried in the train's data, or lost in a missed inspection, was essential. Only by understanding exactly what went wrong could future tragedies be prevented. The stakes were nothing less than the safety of everyone who rides the rails. The Adamas disaster became more than just an investigation. It was a test of Spain's engineering, its commitment to safety, and its willingness to take responsibility. The world was watching, waiting for answers, and hoping that the lessons learned here would echo far beyond the tracks of Adamas. The Adamas crash hit hard at the center of Spain's AVE fast train network, something the country was very proud of. Since 1992, AVE has connected cities quickly and safely, having the longest network in Europe. Earlier deadly crashes, like the one in Santiago de Compostela in 2013, were due to human error on regular train lines. Adamus was different. It happened on a special, very modern AVE line, where technology should have stopped the disaster. The crash forced a painful rethinking of Spain's successful infrastructure story. Now, close attention was paid to both the company that manages the infrastructure, Adif, and new private companies like Ireo. The tragedy showed weak spots in a system long thought to be perfect. The future of AVE's good name depended on a clear and thorough investigation. After Adamus, worrying warnings came out about the safety of Spain's fast trains. Adif had pointed out many technical problems on the line in the year before the crash. Some were even made public. The train drivers' union, SEMAF, had warned about worsening conditions and asked for slower speeds months earlier. Adif had already lowered speeds on other lines because of track worries, showing the problem was widespread. Passengers reported uncomfortable, shaky rides, possible signs of bigger problems. These warnings from officials, unions, and travelers painted a picture of ongoing neglect. The Adamus disaster was not just one event, but the result of ignored warnings. These signs of concern now form the background to the investigation. National mourning quickly turned into anger and demands for someone to take responsibility. The SEMAF union, feeling that their warnings were right, called a strike after another deadly derailment days later. The strike made the crisis worse, highlighting not enough money being spent and ignored warnings. The government faced pressure to manage both the investigation and a train system that was not working. Public trust in the AVE network, once a symbol of modern Spain, was destroyed. Passengers questioned the safety of a system they once trusted without worry. The time of mourning became a time of reckoning for Spain's railways. The country demanded not just answers, but real change. As the shock faded, Spain turned to the hard work of taking responsibility and making changes. The CIAF's final report would decide whether the fault was with the train, the track, or both. Its findings would lead to legal, political, and business consequences. If a manufacturing defect was to blame, Ireo and its suppliers would be closely examined. If the track, Adif, would be in the spotlight. The tragedy demanded a complete overhaul of safety rules and inspection systems. Union warnings could no longer be ignored. Working together was essential for future safety. The legacy of Adamus would be measured by the changes that followed. Spain's leaders faced a long road of technical, political, and legal challenges. The Adamus disaster must mark the start of a new era in railway safety.